Goodman. I want to talk more about the media's role in helping Donald Trump win this stunning upset victory. I want to turn to CBS CEO Les Moonves in a comment that has since gotten a lot of attention. He was speaking at a Morgan Stanley-hosted conference in San Francisco earlier this year.
Who would have thought that this circus would come to town? But, you know, it may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. That's all I got to say. So what can I say? It's, you know, the money's rolling in, and this is...
The polls are open.
This is fun. I've never seen anything like this, and, you know, this is going to be a very good year for us. Sorry, it's a terrible thing to say, but bring it on, Donald. Go ahead. Keep going.
It may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. Bring it on, Donald. Those are the words of Les Moonves, CEO of CBS. Li Fang, you first published this audio of Les Moonves on The Intercept in February. Also last month, CNN President Jeff Zucker said, quote, "If we made a mistake, it was we shouldn't have put on as many Trump rallies as we did." Your comment, Lee.
Well, look, you know, we've been looking at these investor reports from media companies for the last 2 years, and, you know, it's not just Les Moonves. The owners of local broadcast stations have been bragging that they're excited for this election year because all the sleaze, all the super PAC ads, they benefit a very small clique of media owners. And if you look at just the larger role of broadcast media, I think there was a study done that if you look at the large media networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, they provided 350 minutes of airtime to Donald Trump in 2015 and less than 1 minute on ABC News on coverage to Bernie Sanders. Just across the board, whether it's local TV or cable news, they treated this entire election season as a carnival, as a chance for tabloid politics, rather than talking about the vital issues or the political biographies and the policy issues. They take whatever Donald Trump has tweeted, whatever insult he hurled, and treat it as a serious news story. And then, rather than paying for reporters to go out and report the truth and talk to voters or to do investigative reporting, they have pundits, many of them compromised. Many of the pundits that we've seen go on television were quietly or secretly working for one of the campaigns. But then they have pundits go on TV and yell at each other and turn this into a food fight rather than a substantive, thoughtful discussion of the issues. So, you know, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring John Nichols into this discussion around the media and Jose Antonio Vargas. But, I mean, the Koch brothers, who didn't support Donald Trump, said they ended up pouring their millions, more than $1 billion, into down-ballot races, whether we're talking governor, Senate, House, and that just filled the coffers of the local media.
Yeah, I mean, about 5 years ago, Bob McChesney and I wrote a book called Dollarocracy. And what we argued there, and in the book we wrote more recently, People Get Ready, same basic concept, that major media in this country has hit its biggest crisis in history. Its crisis is that advertising revenue now moves toward the phone. It doesn't have to go through. They still get advertising revenue, but they are now dramatically more reliant on political advertising, on campaign ads, which are targeted toward older people who tend to still watch television. As this has happened, they have cut their reporting staffs. They have reduced, we actually documented, there are television stations that have cut into the local newscast, which is the most watched news, cut into it to fit more campaign ads around it. And so understand the circumstance that we have created. It's not a complicated thing. We have created a circumstance in America where news, where actual reporting, as flawed as it may be, on our politics is diminished. There's less of it. It's not done well. And at the same time, we have a massive inflow of money in these campaign ads. We have dialed down journalism. We have dialed up campaign cash. Now, in this year, and this is the critical element of it, we saw cable news, which was sort of, there was out there hopefully to kind of provide more depth, to go deeper into these issues. We saw cable news cede any responsibility. They did hour-long infomercials, running the speeches for a whole hour. And then you came on with, instead of Lee or Antonio, anybody on this panel coming in, they had surrogates for the campaigns do mini debates in which those surrogates had a responsibility not to acknowledge the truth. Their responsibility was to say, my candidate just did a great job, even if your candidate fell off the stage.
They spent more time showing the empty podium waiting for Donald Trump than they played anything to do with Bernie Sanders.
Coming off what Lee said, and you know, Lee actually, he said it was 341. It's actually only 240 to 1 on ABC. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of 2015, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were polling at roughly the same place, and yet Donald Trump was getting on one major television network a 240 to 1 ratio more coverage. This defines reality.
Free
Jose Antonio Vargas.
And to me, the elitism, right, and the kind of the insularity of this Politico set, of this Acela Express from D.C. and New York, must absolutely be broken. It's useless, utterly useless. I actually think today I'm probably gonna I'm gonna unsubscribe from Politico. They said today that we know nothing. Well, thank you for admitting that.
At least we're done.
And I'm the kind of guy that used to like to get my stuff on Politico. So now I'm unsubscribing myself and saying I don't need to be a part of this. Your point, by the way, about the inability of journalists to cover about race. I mean, I've been a journalist since the late 90s. There are less people of color working in American newsrooms now than there was when I started in journalism in the late 1990s, right? For journalists are human beings too. And guess what? We don't like talking about race. White journalists who are mostly in charge of newsrooms across this country do not like talking about race. And so they throw little things like the working class and not contextualize that more, right? To me, I have to say, as an undocumented immigrant who happens to be a journalist, and you know, reporting is my religion. It's been infuriating seeing the media talk about immigration in such factless, lack of context, just irresponsible way. The moment Donald Trump talked about Mexicans as rapists, right? Why didn't anybody just say the fact that there are actually less people going to Mexico and more Americans going, less people from Mexico going to the United States than Americans going to Mexico? Why hasn't anybody said that the fastest growing undocumented population in this country are actually Asian people, not Latinos? Yeah. Why didn't we ever talk about undocumented white people and undocumented black people? Why didn't we even talk about the fact that undocumented workers, according to the Social Security Administration, have paid $100 billion into the Social Security Fund?
And Donald Trump
That
has
they
paid
cannot
no
draw
tax.
back.
That we cannot get back. Now, why isn't any of this part of the report? When this issue comes up, they are not at all a part of the report. You know where you're going to go to find it? DefineAmerican.com/factsmatter. That's where you go. And it's irresponsible that this has happened.
Amy, can I just add something really quickly?
Linda Sarsour.
Yeah, to the point, and Nicole brought up this point. Yeah, of course, race is not the only factor in this, but let's remember that during this race, it was not just about economic security, it was about national security. And we played on the fears of the American people about being protected from terrorism. We had over 2/3 of Americans who supported a ban on Muslims, which is unconstitutional, proposals about registering the Muslims. Let's be real here. We were playing on people's fears of Muslims in this country, and until everyone got outraged, it was when a white woman, we saw a video or heard a recording of Donald Trump speaking in inappropriate fashion or promoting sexual assault to a white woman, and everybody went up in arms. Even the Republican Party was like, not our daughters, not our mothers. But no one said anything when Mexicans were rapists, when we called black people thugs. Black people were getting beat up in rallies, and we want to ban the Muslims, register the Muslims, surveil the mosques, patrol the mosques. Like, this national security was a big factor in this race, and they played on the fear of the American people when it comes to the U.S. national security.
And why weren't we saying, I mean, this simple thing.
John Nichols.
Why weren't we saying that the first mosque in America was in North Dakota, in a small town, in a rural area? The fact of the matter...
You come from rural Wisconsin.
I come from a very rural... No, but what... We didn't, as a media, and a media system in this country, we didn't even try to clarify basic history. Yeah. Not of the moment, but the basic history of this country. And what happened to Muslim Americans is a big, big deal in this campaign. Not a massive population, but yet a population so demonized. And
It is actually a massive population.
it's
How large is the
millions.
American Muslim
at least 5
population?
billion, but the thing that wasn't
Here.
clarified, yeah, of course, it's 1/3 of Muslims are African American.
say.
That's
Absolutely, yeah.
that's number
Exactly,
one.
yeah.
And yes, there may have been a first infrastructure in North Dakota, but there were Muslims who came, enslaved people on slave ships
Without a doubt.
before this country was even called the United States. So the media has played a role in making Islam a foreign entity. We keep talking about Islam in the context of terrorism only, and I can only be a Muslim that you know this, Amy. What do you think about this terrorist attack? What's the Muslim community feeling? No one ever brought me on here to talk about anything else that's not me defending my faith on national television, and the media played a role in that. They made Donald Trump. They gave him free ad space. He didn't even need to raise a penny to be the next president of the United States, and now here we are in the situation that we're in.